The contractor payment wasn't contracted. People like Anthony Del Medico are going to go support him.
What I see happening here is a pattern.
I'm going to be having to deal with the FBI, the district attorney, and Steve Patrick shut it down.
Because this is not right. How much you claim they owe you?
So they owe me, give or take.
Lindsey, if I'm a complete stranger on an airplane sitting next to you and I ask you, what do you do for a living? What do you tell people?
I tell people that I help the helpers. My passion in life is to serve others, to use my voice to help give victims a chance against an uneven transaction in the disaster world, which is usually insurance related and claim related. And so I'm what you call a crisis manager and a disaster manager. And I help people document and stabilize and restore after disaster.
Long talk, but you tell me that you are in insurance restoration. But what's your title? What exactly you do?
Everybody's trying to figure that out. So I've been a roofer, I've been a public adjuster, I've been a policyholder appraiser, expert witness, author, software developer. I mean, I wear so many different hats. I have call centers, I have a lead gen company. So it's hard to categorize just one thing. People, including insurance companies, are constantly trying to categorize me. Well, what are you? And I'm basically the helper. I help the helpers. I don't go and advertise to the masses. The people who know how to reach me have my number, and I help people like the military, HUD, the government, large national retailers. I don't usually help Mr. and Mrs. Smith. I help the people who help Mr. and Mrs. Smith. So that's kind of been my niche. I started out working for my dad's construction company in 2005 in Florida. And my first experience with a disaster was Hurricane Katrina. And it just floored me to see that type of destruction, where literally a casino barge floated and sat on top of a Holiday Inn. And when you're driving by, you think that's the hotel, but it's the casino barge that crushed the hotel. And so talking about just life changing, change the paradigm shift in a community disaster, where a moment in time, things stop and communities come together and they help each other. And that's just the most beautiful part. And what I feel like is an honor to witness after a disaster. It's the great equalizer. Doesn't matter your race, religion, politics, pandemics. Disaster is the great equalizer when it's so severe that it's life or death.
What's the best job you ever have in your life? Out of all the jobs you've ever done, what's number one?
I'll just share my favorite client story because that was a job, but it's still, I was a public adjuster. A lawyer in town had a tragic situation happen. She was in an abusive relationship. She was separating from her husband. Her husband was threatening her. They were in a temporary restraining order hearing. The judge said the husband could go take care of the dog and pack up a few things, and then he had to go straight to treatment. Well, what happened is he went to the house where their family lived, and he burned it down and committed suicide. And then the insurance company decided they were only going to pay half the claim because half of the couple was guilty and half of the couple was innocent. And that is the reason I do what I do.
Wow.
As soon as I gave her cover, my letter of representation, that was like an umbrella to her. It makes me shake thinking about it. It was a safe harbor for her. And I gave her that security she needed. And
so insurance company said they're going to pay half the claim because it was half the guilt?
But there's something called innocent spouse doctrine.
Wow.
And it's not right what they did. And so as soon as
How long did it take you to fight for them?
I sent in my letter of rep, and within 30 days, they limited out her policy on her building. But then they tried to play that game with the contents. And unfortunately, I had to ask my client to reach out to an attorney she knew, because she was an attorney. So she reached out to the president of the Bar Association, and they represented her the rest of the way on the contents. But just being that person, that lighthouse in the storm, that's my passion.
Tell me about your public adjusting career. When did it start? When did it finish? And why did it finish?
So in 2005, I went to work for my dad's construction company in Florida, and Hurricane Wilma hit Florida near Fort Lauderdale, Hollywood, Miami Beach area. And I had a neighbor in my condo building who was a public adjuster. And in Florida, there's a lot of public adjusters, in thousands really. But in Texas, there's like 200 for such a big state. So basically, that public adjuster, after Wilma kind of died down, because every storm and catastrophe is a bell curve. It gets really busy, and then at some point it goes down. So when we were on the downside of the Wilma bell curve, Hurricane Ike hit Houston, Texas, and my neighbor offered me a job to be a public adjuster. I didn't know anything about public adjusting. I was a contractor, a roofer. And so I just set sail for Texas, and I got here as fast as I could. But I love it here. People are so amazing. And essentially, I got licensed. I went out after a year on my own, started my own company. And I've been a business owner pretty much since working for my parents. Even then, I was an entity accepting money. I've always been a company. I hardly ever take projects on as an employee unless it's, through my own company's payroll. So.
But why did it end? Like, what happened at the end?
So in 2020, I had a lot of financial loss, a lot of emotional loss. I was the shoemaker with no shoes. I get paid as an expert in disasters and insurance and claims and standard practices for all of those things. I've been qualified as an expert by a judge. However, I had all the insurance you could buy on this beautiful home in Sugar Land, Texas. It was my first home I purchased. My daughter and I were living in there. And I hired a bad contractor. And literally, they installed defective work. In the first big rain that came, my house flooded.
So you're talking about roofing?
No, landscaping.
Landscaping, okay.
Mm-hmm. And essentially, they blocked the drainage of my property. So the landscaping acted as a dam, and the first time it rained, the water had nowhere to go but into the house. And so I contacted my insurance agent, reviewed the policy. There was no coverage under flood or my homeowners, so it was just an uninsured loss. Cost me $180,000. I had to sell my home as is and leave the home that I was raising my daughter in. And I just lost everything. And I only got half of the money from the contractor's insurance. But I was like most policyholders after a disaster. I was worn down. I was tired. Even though I had resources and information, I just wanted it to be over. So I moved into an apartment for 6 months. And 3 months in, the neighbor had an unattended death, which means no one was there. He was in his 90s. And he fell in the bathroom and he died. And that bathroom wall and my bathroom wall shared a wall. And now I have a biohazard loss. The body was decomposing, fluid, flies, it's a hazard. This is a whole industry. I mean, you can imagine in a city like Houston how many unattended deaths happen, murders, suicide. So special people like ServPro come in and they take all your stuff to special chambers and they deodorize it and sanitize it. I mean, would you want to sleep on a bed after some dead guy? No. Yeah.
Were you renting?
Renting, and I had renter's insurance and it wasn't covered. So now I have my second uninsured loss. And I had, Dave Ramsey says, have your 6 months of emergency fund. I had 10 months. I thought I was safe. I went through my savings. Corona hit, all my cash flow stopped for my businesses, and I ran through my savings, and then I was out of money. And I saw the son posting that he was in Louisiana working Hurricane Laura.
Son, can we name him?
No, we cannot.
Okay, so the sons. You're referring to son of the business owner.
Yes, father and son.
Father and son.
RR, whoever they are.
Okay, or whoever they are. And actually I've seen the post, and I've seen, so you found a job with that company.
And I first was in operations, and I got paid contractor payments every week, a set amount, plus a compensation plan for a salesperson if I brought any deals in. But the first 6 months, I didn't really focus on sales because I could see they had a lot of gaps in their systems and processes.
I'm a little bit prepared, like I was digging into how it's all started. You seem very happy to get the job. Can you explain how you got a job, how you guys met, and like the beginning of the relationship? Did you sign a contract? Did you, because it's going to lead to the full story.
I've known RR, whoever they are, for 7 years. I don't know if you know, but I am before, not the last 2 years because I was in hiatus going through some painful personal issues. But I was the speaker on stage for 10 years. I've spoke for SBA, University of Houston, the National Roofing Contractors Association, IRE. I mean, every organization you can imagine. Before Win the Storm, before RR, whoever they are's conferences, okay? I was on stage teaching, sharing. That's my heart, using my voice to teach people and to serve. And so I knew who they were. And I was receiving referrals as a public adjuster from them for years, but I never got down into their business. But then Hurricane Laura hit, and I went out there because I needed to be able to work in a vehicle I could earn some cash to try to offset those huge losses that I had just had. So I literally coasted in on empty into Lake Charles. And he offered me a 6-figure contractor payment arrangement plus 50% profit share on commissions.
Is it fair to say that that job helped you in the situation you were?
Absolutely. And I'm so grateful for that because I literally ran out of gas financially.
So
I have a lot of relationships and goodwill. I could have picked up the phone and gone work for a number of people to get myself situated. I am an entrepreneur. So if I lose everything tomorrow, I can recreate it again. And that's what I was trying to do.
But you went to work for them and you were grateful for the job. You were grateful for the opportunity to have 6-figure contract. Mm-hmm. And it was a contract. So
yes.
What were your role in the contract? So you have 6-figure salary.
It's not a salary. It's a contractor payment because they contracted with me as a company, not me, Lindsey Douglass.
But still 6 figures.
6 figures.
And you were
plus
paying
50% profit
weekly?
Share weekly. $2,000 a week.
That's good.
Not for me.
Okay.
That
but
was
when you
a
broke,
loss. But when I broke, that got me on my feet.
What was the position? What was the role?
The contractor payment wasn't contracted. The contract I signed was a salesman agreement, an independent contractor salesman agreement. However, they needed my help with large loss estimating, training their new staff, and I became sort of like a right-hand man for the general manager in Louisiana for RR, whoever they are. And then at December, I approached my direct report, my general manager, and I said, look, I'm used to making $500,000 to $750,000 a year in commissions from my business, and I need to go home. If I $2,000 a week contractor payments is me losing money, and I don't mind being one for the team, and I did that for 6 months, but now I want to go make some money, right? I want to help people. I want to get out there and use the systems and the knowledge that I have to get claims funded so people can restore, rebuild. And when you focus on that, the money comes. That's what I've learned. And so the general manager and I started doing some marketing with my methods. The son is supposed to be the marketing guru. However, I disrupted that. I came in and I was generating commercial leads at half the cost of his Facebook residential leads. See, 85% of their leads are from self-generated leads. That's door to door, okay? And he wants you to believe that it's the opposite. The leads he gets on social, he's good at that. However, he has to pay a lot, and he ends up paying more than the deals are worth in the profit, right? And when I wanted to do a reconciliation in that, they wouldn't let me in. But I did look at the QuickBooks, and I did see that they're, based on what I could see, and I'm no CPA, and I'd like to encourage those who have the authority to investigate this issue and have the knowledge to look into this. But a $50 million year a company not making money for more than 1 year raises a lot of questions. Is it incompetency?
But that happens a lot, though.
On purpose? I don't know. Those are great questions.
How long have you worked for the company? Like total period?
September 1st, 2020 up until September 7th, 2021.
So
the father called me and fired me on September 7th.
Why did they fire you?
Because he said that I was competition and that he needed to get me in an understanding and an agreement before I could represent their brand anymore. And by that time, I had already seen red flags for about 2 months.
But on what level competition?
Software systems.
When did that came in play? Because you mentioned that you were hired as a sales rep. When the roles, were you still getting paid weekly?
I was still getting contractor payments up until August 2021. And then the son automatically turned him off, asked the general manager in Louisiana to tell me. The son didn't even have the courage to tell me directly. And they told me on a Monday, hey, by the way, last Friday was your last contractor payment. And that was my first red flag. And at that point, I started giving them rope.
But if you get, like, you've been with a company for a year, if you bring them value, and why do you need a salary if you have commissions?
Because the first 6 or 8 months, I didn't sell and I was in operations. I helped the company.
But it's a year period now. Like I'm talking about towards the end.
But from January to August, they paid me the contractor payments when I was only doing operational work with part of my time. And that was what they said was the reason they cut it off. However, the timing came exactly after a post I put on Facebook promoting my software.
So you're getting paid. I mean, I see both sides too, because if you are promoting your software and you're getting paid weekly, I can understand why they want to take it away, but I want to know what happened to the commissions, because if you sell commissions, what kind of commission structure do you have? Is it
50% profit share, and they charge a 12% overhead charge, which is higher than everyone else.
How much you claim they owe you? Or where is the math?
That's in my lawsuit. We made a list of every client that I signed a hard number contract with. This isn't a contingency. This isn't some fake value. These are real hard number contracts for builds. Some of them were national retailers, just people I knew that I brought in. Some of them were my HUD clients who were my regulars before I ever did this year-long stint with RR, whoever they are. And I brought in some of my regulars after it was time to do, more sales. And then I also generated 400 commercial leads, 75 commercial inspections, and over 10 commercial contracts worth $2.5 million. So they owed me, give or take, $300,000 to $500,000 once all those got sold, built, and collected. However, they sidelined me and they fired me on September 7th, which would prevent me from being able to fulfill my obligation in the contract to sell, build, and collect. So now that basically takes me down to only the selling portion, which is 1/3 of the 50% profit share. So they essentially sidelined me, so I am unable to earn the full amount. And that's what they're doing in like a lot of the 21 people that I have in my messages. They string them along. Stack and starve is what some people have called this. I don't know if you've heard that term. They string them along on draw. But for me, it was a contractor payment. It wasn't an advance because I was doing company work outside of my compensation plan. And then once they realized they wanted to cut that off, then they put me on a Zoom and berated me in front of a whole group where the son said he's Google and I'm just an engineer. And whatever the engineer does while they work for Google is like if I invented documents, then it's Google documents. And I said, well, that's might be true if I was an employee, but I'm not an employee. I'm an independent contractor. I developed the software system on my own computers, on my own property, on my own time. Before I even took this project, my corporation and my software systems predate this project, and I have evidence to show. And so essentially on that Zoom...
Can you describe the software?
The software generates commercial leads on demand after disaster. So I take a cold list of data, just random names, phone numbers, and emails of commercial property owners that I purchased through software. I run it through D&C, the do not call, and then we do outbound telemarketing, text, email, ringless voicemail, and I create a campaign. Some of it's mailers, so just different marketing methods to get people to respond. And that's what I did for them. With $35,000 budget, I generated $2.5 million in business, hard number contracts. So for every dollar they gave me, I returned $40
So your software
in sales.
complements your sales. Like
Yes.
I was worried about that you were spreading yourself too thin, being in sales and then working on the software. Many business owners do that kind of like in too many places. So your software essentially complements and helps you sell.
Correct. It's like a machine and a car, and I'm the driver.
Sure.
And the gasoline is the cold data, right? And I'm over here driving this marketing machine, and I'm putting $1 in, and $40 is coming out the other side. And it disrupts them, and they don't understand how I'm doing what I'm doing. Just like you were trying to earlier, who are you? What do you do? And I'm trying to say, I'm a chameleon. I do anything and everything. It's just whatever, like, I'm passionate about, and if it resonates, right? And so a lot of people wonder how I'm able to do the results that I do. And it's because I have a staff, virtual staff overseas. I have a full-on 24/7 production cycle going on. Like, I'm making money sitting with you right now.
The dispute that you have with them, is it over software or is it over commissions?
That's a good question. I thought it was over the commissions. However, in that recording on September 7th of the father, he basically said that he's trying to launch a software at Wind the Storm in February that's not even developed. It's fake and it needs more development. And he said he needs $1 million more to get it right on the recording. Yet people like Anthony Del Medico are going to go support him and let him be a sponsor at this event with no real product to sell. And it's all here on the recording.
So the dispute is now...
The software, guess who they hired? Some trademark lawyer in Boston. They have no business in Boston. They're in Florida, Texas, and Louisiana. What are we doing with a Boston trademark lawyer? That's who sent me a cease and desist letter. They don't want me here today.
The dispute is over that. Dispute is over.
I don't
what
know.
are the claims?
We have no counterclaims. They haven't responded to our lawsuit.
What will it take for you to settle?
Have you ever heard the saying, don't look a gift horse in the mouth?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I gave them a gift horse. My lawyer, Todd Trombley, sent them an offer at 50 cents on the dollar.
Okay.
And they ignored it.
Ignore it or counter offer? Or is there
Nothing.
any communication?
We gave them a deadline. They completely ignored it.
And it's based on just commissions?
Mm-hmm.
So you calculate your commissions?
Yes. At 50 cents of what they're worth.
How did you come up with the number for commissions?
Based on the values of the contracts that my client signs.
But if you but you don't know what the profits are.
Yes, I do. I set a budget. And I have a year worth of data on my projects on what every single project profited. And on average, I'm at 55% margin. for commercial loss.
But it's still calculated. I mean, I can see how it's easy to argue because you have to have jobs have to be completed.
Complete. And right now, only one out of all the list is in a position that I sold it, build it, and collect it. And they'd have weeks at this point to pay that commission, and they chose not to, despite the fact that the general manager in Louisiana submitted it for payroll 2-3 weeks ago.
But 3 weeks ago, you also started fighting them.
Right.
So I think it's just layers. But I guess what I'm trying to understand, for this to go away and to settled, you have to calculate the numbers. And right now, only one job is
mature. But there's contracts. They're all funded.
But
and
not for the full amount. They can't be a full amount.
Mm-hmm.
Insurance company's not paying for the full amount.
Yes, they do. And I have the proof.
So you're saying that the company has been paid on all the jobs?
No, I'm saying there's been contracts signed with deposits. That's what I'm saying.
But you don't get paid
till it's fully collected. Yes. And only one out of, let's say, 15 has been fully collected at this point, as I'm aware today, they owe me that money and they chose not to pay. But of course, like, for example, I've had employee disputes. I've had 2 employees sue me before. And my lawyer recommended the second a commission was due to pay it. Don't hold it, right?
But it's different because you have other claims, like you have software.
But I've been wrongfully terminated, in my opinion. I didn't have a cause for being terminated. They just...
But you were an employee.
No, I was an independent contractor. I'm not an employee.
No, but do you have to have... How do you terminate independent contractor?
Well, I don't know. They sent me a termination letter and they...
Why do you think it's not?
They said it was because it was a conflict of interest. That was their words.
Well, I see both sides. I see the conflict of interest with the software, but I don't know if that's the right reason to terminate you for the sales position.
Right, because the sales commission job I was performing under the contract. I was bringing in commercial deals. I was signing contracts. I was building projects. I was managing the job, what they call the real deal. I was doing that.
My lawyer told me a long time ago that, because I also have a lot of 1099s and independent contractors. For independent contractor, you can terminate them with no reason, pretty much.
No, I don't know. That's probably a lawyer question. However, I would hear what you had to say if I was in a silo by myself.
Sure.
But since I've been posting online, I've received hundreds of direct messages, and I digged through them yesterday, and I found 21 potential plaintiffs that have made assertions that they've also been victimized. Let's
talk about our industry a little bit, because what I see happening here is a pattern, like very big pattern. It's I feel like company owners always have strong hand over salespeople. It's been a huge problem for decades.
Right.
The moment you upside down or in a financial hole, the easiest money to raise is terminate your salespeople and don't pay them anything on the back end. Do you see that happening, not in this case, but like in general in the industry? Do you see it's a common problem?
I see that there's a lot of business owners that in the roofing business that are very good technical roofers, but terrible business people. And it's the same in the lawyer business. You can have an amazing lawyer technically, but terrible business owner. So that's what I thought was going on. I thought they were losing money by accident and that they just had bad systems and processes. But after reading over 21 victims' stories, I'm realizing that the FBI needs to ask and get the IRS
why
needs
FBI
to get involved to ask some serious questions about where is the profits going and how. And why is a $50 million a year revenue company losing money every year? And why do they have a revolving door of salesmen and high turnover?
But FBI does not care why we have revolving door. Like
they are. There's an active case right now, a federal whistleblower. This is not something that
On the roofing business.
in the roofing business.
So what are the claims? What are exactly they're investigating?
I'd actually like for you to talk with one of the family members with the same last name as father and son.
Okay.
And that's her story. I'm here today to tell you about what happened to me. I came in with nothing. I lost everything. I thought I got to a safe place that I could like stand up again and like earn some money. And then when I got to the 90-yard line of realizing that hard work for almost a year, I was terminated unfairly, wrongly.
But did you get paid full amount on the contract? Did you pay all $100,000 in a year?
It was on a week-by-week basis.
But still, what's the amount you get paid in a year? $100,000.
$104,000 in contractor payments.
And that was in a contract.
No.
So according to because when you went to work for them, you signed a paper like agreement.
Yes.
Did they violate it? That agreement? Did you get paid everything the agreement says?
I'm not an attorney. I don't know what violated it or not, but I did submit the evidence to my attorney, Todd Trombley, and he's a very servant leader attorney, and he's not an ambulance chaser, and he took my case on contingency because he believes that I have a case.
Well, and the only reason I'm asking because I'm establishing kind of patterns. So I always tell people, if you go to work for someone, especially on a kind of partnership level, like if me and you would say, hey, I love your app, let's go in business.
Like, yeah, I want to be Judge Judy on your new show.
So when you go in business with someone, you have to think about exit strategy, even because when you start, it's all good. It's all roses.
Yes.
It smells good. Like
honeymoon phase.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But then how are you gonna get out of it? Like you have to put that in writing, and that's what I want to know. Like you sign the paperwork. It says I'm gonna pay you $100,000 a year. You got $100,000 a year. Along the way, we have app, we have software, we have more commissions. So we add a few more layers, and I just like for me personally, I'm a black and white. Like if you're the judge. You know that person with the most paperwork wins. Like it's all paper. It's not he said, she said. It's like, okay, show me the contract. That's what I want to know. You said you're gonna give her $100,000. Did you get $100,000? Yes.
Like I said, that wasn't in the contract, but I have the contractor payments, bank records, paperwork, and in my contract, it was an independent sales rep agreement. So that is
so
the
we
only
still have
thing
commission dispute.
That's what this lawsuit's about.
But
the commissions.
Commission dispute is also easy because you have numbers. Commissions, it's math.
Yeah.
It's something that can be calculated.
However, we will be doing our own study in calculating the profit margin because based on, testimony from other victims that have come forward that they've been forging material and labor invoices to lie about what the true profit is. And so, unfortunately, we can't rely on face value, a piece of paper on what they give us.
Another controversy I have to bring and ask you is, you mentioned that you hire a lawyer on contingency agreement because he believed in the case. Why did you decide to do GoFundMe if you have lawyer on contingency?
Yes, because yesterday I cut a $10,000 check to Chip Lewis, who is a criminal defense attorney.
Okay. Why do you need him?
He represented the accountants of Enron, and he has a lot of knowledge about Ponzi schemes. And because the federal government is involved in this case, and there's a federal whistleblower, and I've also spoke to the FBI, that I need representation on both the civil and criminal aspect. So my civil attorney, Todd Trombley, is charging a 25% contingency fee. However, Chip Lewis, I'm paying by the hour. I'm not made of money. The whole thing, all the money that they were...
But why do you need Ponzi scheme? Like, the question, so now, number one is why now? Why not win? If your lawyer, if he knows that he's going to win the case on contingency, it doesn't cost you anything, why not finish it, settled, and then why we bring Ponzi scheme accusations to it?
Well, first of all, we don't know whether we're going to win. That's in the future. We can't know for sure.
But it doesn't cost you money.
However, based on my experience and my attorney's experience in reviewing the evidence, observing the patterns, and interviewing potential victims, he believes we have a strong case. However, I'm going to be having to deal with the FBI, the district attorney, and all these like criminal type professionals. And it's just like anything. If I don't know something, I pay an attorney to research it for me. And then this is my way of understanding what's happening. Because in the beginning, I thought it was just civil. I hired Todd. We filed a lawsuit. And when we started announcing publicly what was happening, that's when we got hundreds of messages. That's when the 21 people came forward too afraid to say something. And that's when my passion and my purpose was born here, because I've represented the underdogs my whole life. I am representing the people who were victimized by a disaster and then victimized by their insurance company again. And so when I saw there were 21 victims, I have 1,000 people on my Facebook. How did this many people find out? How many people are there really if just 21 people already came forward? And although my attorney is taking his time on contingency, guess who's paying the expenses for everybody? Me, out of my own pocket, because I wanted to give the space for people to come forward. And if they have to pay for it, they're not going to. They can't. They're not in a position where they have relationships like I do. So I asked for help. And so, but the GoFundMe was a flop. There's like $200 donated there. And I just put it out there, and it's not about me getting the money. It's about funding the expenses and funding the criminal lawyer so I can get information on how Ponzi schemes work, and he can be there to present me when I talk to the FBI.
Can you define Ponzi schemes and why you believe that this is a Ponzi scheme we're talking about?
A Ponzi scheme, I don't know, people watch Wolf of Wall Street, and what happened is they get new investors, new victims into their vision of how they're going to make everybody money. And then, like, for example, on this recording, the father talks about he's 2 years away from having a product that he believed would actually work in the marketplace, yet he's out trying to raise $1 million right now
That's what venture capital is all about. It's not Ponzi scheme. Raising
but
money.
The problem is that he was going to tell everybody, well, I don't know if this is true. My guess is he wasn't going to tell people it wasn't ready.
But people are buying into ideas like all the time.
Absolutely.
That's what Silicon Valley does all the time. You go in, it's like, I have this idea, you raise $200 million.
Just like that one lady who pretended like she had all those biology things and raised all this money, and it now turns out it was fake.
Well, she was committed fraud. She was lying. It's one thing to raise capital. It's another thing to lie to your investors to keep raising capital. That's what she was doing.
I think these are all things that, again, the FBI and IRS should be asking some very important questions. And some of the common patterns I notice between RR, whoever they are, and a Ponzi scheme is that all the talent leaves. The real quality talent leaves.
But it's a leadership problem. It's not.
Absolutely. That's what I thought all along.
Being a bad leader is
I thought it was incompetence.
But it's not
it's too coincidental.
FBI does not investigate bad leadership.
Yeah, but they do investigate Ponzi schemes, and there's an existing lawsuit right now against the father's original company. The story is just breaking. And one day, we're going to look back at this and it's going to be really clear, because the people who have the authority to do something are aware now of the problem. And I'm going to help them get them everything they need to do the right thing here.
How many companies do you see out there, like in the roofing industry, doing something similar? Because it's not.
I see another one based in Dallas right now, and I plan on helping a specific victim that was victimized by them, a grandma. They stole from a grandma, and they threatened her in writing. And when I tried to speak up about what was happening with RR, whoever they are, that was the first contractor trying to find dirt on me behind the scenes in Steve Patrick's group. And Steve Patrick shut it down. Thank you, Steve. He wasn't going to allow that bullying behind closed doors. So that contractor also, there's tons of them. It's a problem, systematic.
I want to get back a little bit to your years of public adjuster, because I've seen the comments and I don't want to, I don't want this interview to be dramatic or bring drama or dirt, but I do want to talk about a relationship between public adjusters and the contractors. I know you had disputes with the contractors. Can you share your side of the story? I don't want to mention any names.
Sure.
But I know probably at least 5 contractors who came in the comments, and they've been nasty, not gonna lie. And I don't want to get nasty, but explain nature of those disputes. And I want you also to give advice to both public adjusters and contractors how to work together, because this is not right. We're both trying to do the right thing for the homeowners, at least we say we do.
We want to help the people.
But then we cannot get together. And I also see patterns. When I see 5 contractors have problem with you, I want to share,
Absolutely.
What was happening?
So I just want to say thank you to those 5 contractors or whoever they are, because out of a career of 20 years to only have on one hand how many people who think I did a bad job, I'd say that's pretty freaking good. People who really know me, Dimitri, don't believe that chatter, because I've proven over and over and over my integrity.
But what happened with them? What kind of stories?
Specifically, the one that I was talking about, that grandma situation, that contractor, he referred me 3 properties, okay? Referred meaning there was a dispute. He contacted my office. I consulted the clients on contingency and said, you've got a claim, you've got damage. I'd like to be your public adjuster. I've contracted all 3 claims. On the first one, I met with the adjuster, and that contractor went and tarped every roof with no damage and caused damage to the property that was unnecessary. And when the adjuster saw it, he wanted all the tarps pulled off. And had the adjuster not paid for the roof, my client would have sustained a huge loss by the improper work of that contractor. And so before it even got to that, that client had referred that contractor to a friend of hers who needed siding and some roof. Well, that contractor failed inspection and did shoddy work. And that's why my client didn't hire him to do the roofs. Had nothing to do with me. And then when that happened, they sued my client.
Wow.
Saying they were owed money. I had an invoice for what the tarp cost, the tarps that were unnecessary that caused damage. The adjuster was pissed. But I did show there was wind damage, so fortunately I was able to get them bought. However, that contractor went around to the other 2 clients and tried to get me fired. And the clients ended up choosing me over him.
Wow.
Another issue with a contractor they're friends with is I represented a client. It was a Mrs. Smith, a residential deal. And I was able to get the claim to a certain point, but it disputed, and I couldn't get the insurance company to pay. And so it needed a dispute resolution. However, the contractor and I didn't see the same path, and he tried to get me fired, although I have a 3-day right of rescission in my contract, and I already had spent money on that case on estimates and travel because it was out of town, and I wouldn't give the release. I'm like, why should I? The client had a choice when they hired me. Y'all are going to use my estimates, my photographs, and all my evidence to document this claim in whatever path you take. And the client hired some lawyer that wasn't even licensed in this state.
Wow.
And they were trying to make me look like the bad guy. So there's another example of the people who are saying I'm the bad person. There's two sides to every story. And if you contacted the clients, you would hear the real side. But again, I'm not trying to involve all the clients in this drama. Even the ones under RR, whoever they are, they do not. I never told the clients until now one of them found out, because there's a lawsuit now. HUD found out.
I see.
And they are pissed because I worked on all their files in Louisiana and I didn't get paid for it.
But the job's not done.
No,
yet.
they are.
They are?
Two of them are.
I see. I feel like the biggest problem with the public adjusters and contractors is often public adjuster over promise and
under deliver.
Well, in the sense of like on the marketing message, like a contractor think of public adjuster like as a slam dunk. I bring public adjuster, I'm gonna get this job or whatever. And it's almost like that guarantee, just like a marketer.
There's no one fits all solution. It's a toolbox.
Exactly, but public adjusters portray themselves almost like a marketers. Like what marketers say? Like, do you want your phone ring? You want leads? Are you ready to take 50 leads?
Let me maximize the claim. I'll get you your settlement.
Exactly. So right from the get-go, contractors stepping in this relationship. Okay, I never worked with a public adjuster before. Now I'm going to hire Lindsey or whoever it is. And they look at you guys as savers. They think their business will be saved. They think that immediately they'll double or triple. Now the same thing happening when you build a new website. Oh, now I'm going to be in the game. Now I'm a big player. Like the moment the transaction happened, they have expectations that something will change. Not realizing that, okay, it might be 2-year process or 3-year process, and then when you don't deliver or that claim get denies after PA work, you're like, why did I have you? And then it goes to appraisal or a lawyer, and it's like, well, why did we involve the PA in the first place?
But just to give you an example, like the law firm we're sitting into right now, my client, I got money. The client we didn't get enough. The client got a consultation with 3 different firms, ended up hiring this one. It ended up in appraisal. I chose the appraiser, or I suggested the appraiser. The client agreed, and now we have a 7-figure award. So like, yes, there's a lot of public adjusters who are just on paper saying they know how to do this work. But then there's the real artists in the real practice who don't need to go out and tell you how good they are because they just are. Like I've settled a $15 million claim for the military without lawyers, without appraisers.
What's in the store for you? What's in the future? What direction are you taking? Are you going to go back to PA days? Because you're not PA anymore.
I still have a public adjusting practice
still do?
With active clients. I had that.
You're licensed?
Even
where are you licensed?
In Texas.
Texas? So is that
I
where you're going?
The software company before, like I started at RR, whoever they are, on September 1st, 2020. I filed the entity in June 2020. I had the software in the system before I even filed for the entity name.
Are you going all in on software, or are you going to keep doing PA work?
I'm not going to do PA work, but I am going to do dispute resolution work on large loss, 1 million or higher, whether that is as a PA or as an hourly consultant, expert witness, or policyholder appraiser on large loss only.
Do you see yourself getting a full-time job, working for someone else?
Not after this experience, not for a long time.
So you're going to be self-employed?
I'm going to work in my own business, which is the Disaster Advocates and Convert Mine.
What will make you happy today with this case? What's the perfect ideal resolution?
I'm happy right now because I'm grateful you gave me this opportunity to at least share my personal experience, and highlight the fact that I wasn't alone, that this happened to other people, and that I have documentation to show that. I was wrongfully terminated. And essentially, by contract, that gave them a chance to reduce my commission value by 66%. And now they've hired a trademark attorney, and I don't know if they're coming after my software or not, because on that Zoom, the son said, I'm fucking Google and you're the software engineer, and Google Documents belongs to Google. But I never was an employee. So my goal is just to share, and now that I've done this, I've basically mourned this situation in the last week. It's really been a grief. I'm ready to let it go and move on and focus on the future. I've hired new people. I've had, some events coming up. I want to get back onto the speaker circuit because, I have a lot of relationships with the contractor associations and the SBA. And I want to, share, like I always have, like my calling on my heart, which is to serve people and to help people, give people a voice when they're a victim of circumstance.
Right, guys, we have about 7 questions left with Lindsey, but first I want you to vote on this video. It's very important for Roofing Insights, for myself personally. We share a lot of stories. Some people come in comments and absolutely destroy us and say that we like drama and we just pick in these negative stories because we like attention and likes. I promise you this, we hate these stories. I wish to highlight success and lift contractors, but sometimes you have to do the hardest work, and this is hard. We're filming this interview in lawyer's office. I have lawyer behind the camera, it puts a pressure on me, but things that we cover needs to be said. But I want you to vote. Like this video if you like and support and think that these videos are important, and dislike it if you don't want us ever to bring another conflict to this channel. If you're tired of it, it's like, hey, let's just not even talk about people arguing with each other and have disputes. We don't want it. I want you to vote. Let's finish this interview. Lindsey, can you describe roofing industry to the outsider in 2 sentences?
It's a bunch of pirates and renegades sailing on the ocean before even things were discovered. That's what it feels like.
What is the biggest need today in the roofing industry?
Integrity and cleaning up these people who are making the real contractors look bad.
Can you name the biggest career opportunities in the industry right now?
I think that the public adjusting industry really needs to see some growth. We only have a few hundred in the whole state of Texas, so that's a huge edge.
It's a big shortage.
Mm-hmm.
Roofing industry has a huge amount of podcasts now, more and more people come into the media space, but yet not many people are willing to talk in front of the camera. What are people afraid of? Why people have this heartbreaking stories, but nobody is. We have podcasts. You can't say that we don't have them anymore. Everybody has a phone, everybody has Facebook and YouTube, but yet people don't want to come and share. Why is that?
Fear
Fear
that they're
of what?
not good enough. It's a basic human condition. Oh, I'm not skinny enough, pretty enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not good enough. And that's our deepest fear as a human being, and that's what we all have in common. Some of us step out into the fear and we have shaky legs and we do it anyways. And that's what I call courage over comfort. And that comes from Brene Brown, Rising Strong.
Was it hard for you to do this interview?
No, I've been deposed 50 times.
This is
I
easier.
knew you would be a little bit less sharky than some of these insurance company defense attorneys.
What's your message to the industry?
Just have courage over comfort.
Guys, subscribe to the channel if you're new here. Give it a like, comment something nice for Lindsey and her courage to comment to the interview, sharing her story. Comment below what you think. I read all my comments, I'll reply to you. But please be respectful, no name calling. Love you all, guys. See you in the next video.